The NCAA is looking to change a rule. And in my opinion, it's the only rule that gives the athletes any kind of say in the matter. That rule is the graduate transfer rule. Now, for those of you who don't know, the graduate transfer rule was implemented in 2006 that states if a player earns his bachelor's degree and still has eligibility left with the NCAA, he's able to go to any grad school with a sports program and play immediately. They want to get rid of this rule. Now, the NCAA claims that the most important thing for these student athletes is for them to get their degree, to get that very expensive sheet of paper that says they're able to learn. So if a player goes through, obtains his bachelor's degree, and he still has eligibility left with the NCAA, I believe he should be freely allowed to transfer anywhere and play immediately. But that's coming under fire. One of the biggest critics of it is Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby, who says, and I quote, "I wonder about the kids leaving their teammates and going for a better offer. For me, I look at it from a player standpoint. And I think of that kid from Eastern Washington, quarterback Vernon Adams, who transferred from Oregon. What message does that send to his teammates? That they've been sweating and bleeding with him for 3 years. He gets a better offer and jumps ship? I'm not sure that's a great message to send to a group of teammates." We'll get to the true hypocrisy there in a second. But on Vernon Adams, yes, he did play 3 years at Eastern Washington. He had very good seasons there. He was Big Sky Player of the Year twice. I believe he played for a national championship, but he wanted to better himself. He wanted to prove, he's done it at the Division II level. He wanted to prove that he could do it at the Division I level. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Plus, he thought that there was a chance that he might be able to go to the NFL. So he goes to Oregon. He has a 7-3 record. He's an honorable mention for the All Pac-12 team. He's invited to the East-West Shrine Game and is the offensive MVP of the game. Gets invited to the Combine, a thing that would have never happened had he not gone to East Washington. None of that would have happened if he had stayed at Eastern Washington. Sadly, he did not get drafted into the NFL. He currently plays for the Montreal Alouettes in the Canadian Football League, but that's neither here nor there. Now, to get back to the Big 12 saying that it's not okay for this to happen. You see, it's one thing when a player goes somewhere else to play for another team. That's a backstabbing. That's where people raise their hands and say players should not be allowed to leave their teams. But you see, when a coach goes, no one bats an eyebrow. You see, the Big 12 has had a history of stealing smaller time coaches to come into their institutions. Most notably, Texas has had two big ones recently. They hired Charlie Strong from Louisville, who lasted 3 years as the Texas head coach and is currently out of coaching at this point. And their most recent hire this year was Tom Herman to come play for Texas. Last year he coached Houston. The coach before Houston, you might also know the name of that person as well. His name was Art Briles. He ended up going to Baylor, completely turned that program around. Granted, he left it in complete shambles with the scandals that were there, but that's not what we're talking about here today. The fact is that when a coach goes and makes millions of dollars in the process, he leaves these players that he recruited. He went to those players' homes, sat his parents down, looked the parents in the eye and said, "I'm going to take care of your child. I'm going to be his parental figure, and he's going to get a great education under my tutelage at this university." Freshman season's not even over yet. You finish the regular season, you're potentially going to a bowl game. Then all of a sudden your coach just ups and leaves before your final game. You no longer have a head coach to play your game, but for some reason that's okay, but a player after the season who doesn't get any money goes to play for another university after he gets a degree from the school he originally attended, and for some reason this kid is being treated much worse than an adult who encouraged the kid to come here, and then he just abandons them once he gets a better offer. I'm not sure what kind of message that sends to a bunch of players that you personally recruited. Speaking of players that were personally recruited, I want to go to a situation that was kind of close for me in a way. This story involves a Michigan guard named Spike Albrecht. For those of you guys who don't know, Spike Albrecht is a member of the Michigan Wolverines basketball team. He was on the national championship team. They went to the national championship game in 2013 against Louisville. Granted, he was not drafted. Then in the 14-15 year, he was named a co-captain. So he graduated with his bachelor's degree, and his coach, John Beilein, told him that he was not going to get a scholarship to play for Michigan if he were to stay there as a grad student. So he was free to go wherever he wants. But not really, because Beilein told him, you're not allowed to transfer to any Big Ten school, which is kind of hypocritical in a way, because he just wanted to come back to Indiana and play for what I can only assume is a hometown favorite for him of Purdue. And by the way, I did go to grade school with Spike, and Spike, if for some odd reason you actually happen to see this, hey, best of luck to you in all your future endeavors. Hope you have a good one, man. So the true hypocrisy here is that same summer that Spike Albrecht is looking to go to Purdue, the Michigan Wolverines football team gets its graduate transfer in by the name of Jake Rudock. For those of you guys who don't know who Jake Rudock is, he was a quarterback for Iowa, a Big Ten rival, we'll call it. And he was replaced by his backup quarterback before the year ended, so he wanted to get a better chance elsewhere since he was not going to play at Iowa. All within his reason, all he was able to do. He went to Michigan. Harbaugh loves the rule. Harbaugh, when asked about if players are being transferred for scholastic reasons, he says, and I quote, "I don't think football players should be restricted." Interesting that he words it that way. Is it because he knows that his school tends to have a policy that won't allow players to transfer anywhere in the Big Ten? Long story short, everyone gets to transfer they want. The coach, Coach Beilein of Michigan sees the hypocrisy of what he was saying. He allows Spike Albrecht to go and play for the Purdue Boilermakers. Rudock comes in, he's able to play for Michigan, and he becomes the starting quarterback. Michigan football team barely misses the college football playoff on a BS spotting in Ohio State on the fourth and 1 play. And then for Purdue, they made it to the NCAA tournament. They made it to the Sweet 16. I believe they ended up losing to Wisconsin. But either way, long story short, everyone ended happy. They both played their 1 year, and now they're no longer in the NCAA, playing for the NCAA. But truly, the most disgusting thing that I've heard about this entire graduate transfer program, it comes back to the coaches. Now, I'm going to be not quoting here. I'm going to be paraphrasing, and I cannot remember what coach said this. So, with that prefaced, here's what he said. He said that I'm going to make my players carry a lighter workload so they will not graduate before they can use the graduate transfer rule. I'm sorry, but that is just total hypocrisy. Again, the most important thing for a college athlete is to get his degree, to walk across the stage, not even get his degree at that point, just get a nice little holder that he can display it in someday. But he doesn't even, months later, that expensive piece of paper comes in, and then you get to slide it in the little corners and display it proudly on the wall. He was going to prevent them from doing that so he wouldn't lose his job or lose his players. That is wrong. That same coach that came in to the parents' living room, looked the parents in the eye, said, I'm going to protect your son. They're going to get a great education. I'm going to teach them what it means to be a real man. He's going to prevent them from getting an education so they don't up and leave him. But God forbid a D1 school starts calling or a big top 5 conference school starts calling. That same coach who won't let his players carry this heavy load of coursework so they won't leave him, he'll just up and go whenever he dang well pleases because he has that right. And so does the player. And I'm sorry that the player gets the brunt of the hypocrisy of the NCAA and gets literally no reward from it, but a coach who protects these players, who's the lifeline for the parent sometimes, who's their guardian, who's their teacher, can just up and go And like I've said before, no one bats an eye. And that's wrong. And this is why the graduate transfer rule should be left alone. It should not be touched. Because it gives the players the ability to do exactly what a coach is able to do at the drop of a hat. Thank you for your time today, guys, and thank you for your viewership.